if you want to just come in, guys. Remember I said nothing's here by chance. Yeah? Even the walling here is significant because flint is not natural to this area. But if you go to the UK, it's natural stone walling in different areas of the UK. So you've been to Cromer.
Yeah.
Cromer is made of flint, basically. All the cottages are faced with dressed flint. The church as well. So they shipped this over from Hampshire and from Norfolk, where I'm from, to create this illusion, of a wall in effect, of this little bit of England. So yeah, this is not local. For me, this is a little bit of home. Okay. Come this way, guys. So in terms of organisation, so the monuments to the missing do have an order, which is British Army regimental history, British Army regimental precedence. Guys, do you know the senior service being Royal Navy? PAL number 1 is Royal Marines and Royal Naval Division fighting as infantry. Then it goes through the old Guards divisions, the cavalry divisions, the Royal Engineers, the Royal Artillery, ends up at the far end for new regiments formed for the First World War, like the Tank Corps. They don't exist before the First World War. Now it's slightly different with the graves. They're random in effect. The only order the graves are in is the order they were found. So if two men were found buried side by side in the battlefield, they'll bring them in again and bury them side by side again. Okay. But apart from that, it's equality in death. So by definition, you will find clumps of Canadians buried together, or Australians, or whatever. It's because it's how they were found. It's not a policy of segregation. Okay, it's just literally that area battlefield, loads of Canadians there, bring them all in together. Okay. So if you look where the cross of sacrifice is, look to the right of it where the little tree is. Yeah. Look in the distance. There's a tree line. Look above the tree line in the distance. Can you see the spires of Ypres? It's a bit misty.
Yeah,
I can
see that.
Just about, yeah, you can see them. So that's the depth of the battlefield from here to there, basically. Passchendaele sits about half a mile behind us. We don't break out of this area till 1918. The Germans never take Ypres by force. So between here and there, 5 major battles, backwards and forwards here, during the 4 years of war. Passchendaele being the most infamous, because it takes us 100 days to get from Ypres, okay, on that tree line in front, to take Passchendaele in effect. Okay, every single day for those 100 days, we are losing 750 men a day killed every day for 100 days to get from there to there. Okay, now we can talk about mud, as we have done earlier. We can talk about lack of technology. We can talk about generals. Okay, there's all sorts of factors involved in this, but there is one factor which I don't quite know why everybody seems to overlook. They're more keen on blaming British generals. Okay, I will guarantee you there is not one British general in one of these German pillboxes here firing a machine gun at our troops. It's the German army. And don't forget, the German army shouldn't be here. It's no different to World War II. They've invaded Belgium. And not only have they invaded Belgium, they've occupied it, and they want to keep it within the new German Empire. No different to World War II. So what the Germans have done here between 1915 and 1917, between Ypres and here, they've built 2,000 concrete pillboxes. The walls are 10 feet thick. They surround them with barbed wire, 40 metres deep, and in most of them, okay, they put a heavy machine gun with a spotter with high-powered binoculars. Now, you guys will know when we read about the First World War and we look at the Battle of Somme, for example, the heavy machine guns being used for quite close quarter fighting. They wait until the enemy gets close, then they're mowing them down in rows. Yeah. What a lot of people don't understand is, bearing in mind Ypres is 4 miles from here. Yeah. A First World War heavy machine gun, British or German, actually has a range of 2 miles. The Germans can hit somebody halfway between here and Ypres with a heavy machine gun. So they're on the slopes like this. They don't just build one defensive line, they build 5. So you get through one, you've got to get through another, and you've got to get through another, slogging up the slope through mud with the Germans firing heavy machine guns at you from 2 miles away. Now, I once had a guy on a tour, he went, yeah, but they're not very accurate. They don't have to be accurate. They're firing thousands of rounds. They're spraying the whole area. And when you've got a guy with binoculars next to you saying, well, move 1 degree to the left, you'll be hitting that group of guys. That's why we're getting those terrible casualty rates. To be quite honest, when you look at open that ground news, don't forget everything is destroyed. I'm amazed anybody got hit. So guys, this is the battlefield plot. Look how erratic it is compared to the rest of the cemetery. All the others are brought in after the war, so they're not buried under gunfire. These are hurried burials in shell holes, muddy craters or whatever, okay? There's a big German bunker, one of the 2,000 I mentioned, beneath the Cross of Sacrifice. We put that on top. The Cross of Sacrifice, by the way, guys, is the only one designed with steps going up the side. So you are allowed to walk up those steps to the height of the top step only. Don't start climbing up the cross. But you're not being disrespectful, okay, if you do that, okay? And you can look across the battlefield and the cemetery as well. There's also 2 more visible bunkers in the cemetery of those 2,000. One in the bottom right-hand corner where the gardeners are, just down there. You can see the concrete blocks between the trees. And then one in the bottom left-hand corner between the tall trees. There's 2.
What do you think, Noah?
Very peaceful around here.
It's mad, isn't it? There's none gone. Yeah.
It's a H Probert and it's a Warwickshire regiment. Isn't that funny that my eyes just picked up on that? Could be Robert's relation, couldn't he?
But you were formerly a Probert.
Yeah. One of my stepsisters is married to a Probert and it's Warwickshire.
What do you think of this place, Mum?
Very touching, very moving, very well kept.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Sad, very sad. I don't like it when I see him in there.
Fighting for our freedom, wasn't there? It wasn't a waste.
Oh look, he was born in Japan.
The Worcestershire Regiment. We don't know who it was though, do we? There's lots of unknowns here, unfortunately. There's 2 next to each other, look. At least they got buried together.
Commonwealth cemeteries in the area. They're all mixed in terms of nationalities, and you will find non-Commonwealth burials in there as well. German soldiers sometimes, French soldiers for example. But we all look very similar. Immaculately well kept, upright white headstones. Every British and Commonwealth cemetery has the Cross of Sacrifice, that's the cross at the back, and the larger ones have the Stone of Remembrance, that's the big white block there, the big white stone, and that's kind of like a focal point for wreath laying. So a cemetery of over 400 or more will have those, okay. Now, you guys pay for this. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission are formed during the First World War. They were then the Imperial War Graves Commission. And it's government funded today, so government tax, so your tax money. So as a British and Commonwealth taxpayer, this is what part of your tax money goes to, okay, for the upkeep of our cemeteries. Now, they look as they do for a very specific reason, okay. So what we tried to do after the war, when we're actually constructing the cemeteries, we're clearing the battlefields. And when we came across a group of burials of about 40 or more, we would form a cemetery, make it into a cemetery. Okay, put a boundary around it and then turn it into a cemetery. So the smallest cemeteries here are about 40, 50 graves. Tyne Cemetery, the largest we don't go into, is 12,000 graves. That's the largest in the world, from our perspective, okay. But the design thing for our cemeteries is we're trying to make our cemeteries resemble traditional English gardens. So the whole idea is to give comfort to the wives, the mothers, the girlfriends when they came over to visit the graves of their loved ones. So in order to do this, to create this illusion, if you will, of this little bit of England in the corner of a foreign field, we've employed Kew Gardens, or the Walgates Commission have used Kew Gardens to do the original planting schemes. So when you go into Tyne, as we're now about to, you'll see it's packed full of roses, lavenders, you know, irises, all sorts of stuff you would expect to find in a traditional English cottage garden.